Oh God, Dane.
Hello and welcome to Who Is Best, a show where I look right into games that give you choices and rate those choices in a tier list. Final Fantasy XV was a disappointing title upon release. Having one of the most notorious development cycles of any Square game, it went down in infamy both inside and outside the company. The final product is good, made better with additional patches and DLC years later. Also, this girl's named Cindy instead of Sydney, and I will never forgive Square Enix for this mess up. Now, with this open world lies a plethora of weapons, but there are a set of 12 unique weapons called Royal Arms that we'll be talking about today. These versatile arms make up some of the best equipment in the game, but there's a catch. They slowly, or sometimes quickly, drain your HP and MP. Despite that though, once you've collected all 12 of these bad boys, you'll unlock one of the strongest attacks in the game, the Armiger Unleashed. So today we're asking ourselves which Royal Arm is best in Final Fantasy XV. I'd like to thank the website GamerDecide.com for publishing one of the most useful articles on this topic. Though my list disagrees in some ways with theirs, I'd suggest checking it out for a second opinion. Also, if you like objective video game tier lists, then consider subscribing and checking out our Patreon page for perks. If you join the Pro tier, you can request your own video today. Now, without further ado, I give you the tier. The Sword of the Tall is almost counter-effective. It basically debuffs Noctis to the point where it's fighting for the other side. Sword of the Tall has the highest damage of any Royal Arm, but its moveset is absolutely terrible. First, it's slow and leaves Noctis open for attacks. Second, it is built strictly for single enemy combat, which is a rarity in this title. Oh, and did I mention it reduces your elemental resistance, making you vulnerable to magic attacks? What a joke. Next on the tier is the Mace of the Fierce. Though the mace doesn't debuff you as bad as the Sword of the Tall, it's still a major disadvantage in battle. Not only does it lower your resistance to bullets, it's also slow and lacks the attack stat of the Sword of the Tall. But its Warp Strike is decent, and well, that's about it. The low tier. The Star of the Rogue is a mid-game weapon obtained in Chapter 7. The only reason this bad boy didn't land on the tier with the others is that its Warp Strike has a multi-hit effect that, if used correctly, can actually be effective against larger enemies. Aside from that though, its moveset is terrible. I mean, to the point that it's nearly impossible to use, but if mastered, it won't be the worst weapon on this list. Sword of the Wise is obtained at the beginning of the game and comes with a double tap Warp Strike that can be useful in the early game. You can do some fairly easy cheese in battle, striking then running away. The main issue though is that the HP drain on this weapon is one of the highest of the Royal Arms, making it extremely difficult to use long term. Swords of the Wanderer may be the coolest looking weapon of the bunch. Overall though, they make for an average weapon, which is a shame. Swords of the Wanderer has a straightforward moveset, and I mean straight. Versatility and attack direction is not this thing's forte. Also, it's a bit slow and lacks damage potential, which is disappointing. But aside from that, it can still be viable to use if you really want to. The mid tier. Depending on how you view weapon viability, Bow of the Clever could land on the God tier. This long-range weapon is the king of cheese. Skirting enemies and firing barrages of attacks is the key to the bow's success. Aside from this though, the bow lacks any real purpose. You can't use it while airborne, and warp strikes are all but useless. The main reason you use it is for buffing magic and cheesing fights. Next on the mid tier is the Shield of the Just. The shield is great for grinding AP by abusing its Warp Strike. It's also a stat boosting machine and imperative when trying to break off larger sections of enemies via its high crit chance. Using the phase button will heal your HP for the cost of MP, and finally it can block unblockable attacks. The main issue here is that there are just better weapons on this list, meaning that the Shield of the Just is situationally useful. The final weapon in the mid tier is the Blade of the Mystic. This is an early game story blade that is probably the most well-rounded of the Royal Arms. Its main draw is its strength buff that can be applied before battle, allowing you to prep for enemy encounters. Overall, it's the definition of mid-tier weapon. Not the best, but not the worst. The top tier. The Axe of the Conqueror is a hard to master weapon that can be highly effective if you play your cards right. This weapon has the highest HP drain of the Royal Arms. It also debuffs your vitality while in use. Now all of that sounds pretty bad, but if utilized in the right situations, the Axe of the Conqueror can use Blindside for immense damage, some of the highest in the game. Yes, the Axe is a gamble, but one worth taking. The Sword of the Father is the single best Royal Arm in Final Fantasy XV. It has a massive strength and magic buff, and its final blow dishes out incredible damage. On top of all of this, its Warp Strike is MP free. It also has some of the lowest HP drain of these unique weapons. The main issue why the sword didn't land on the God tier though is it's the final weapon you obtain, and it's found in the final chapter of the game, making it the least available Royal Arm of the bunch. The final weapon of the top tier is the Scepter of the Pious. Of all the weapons, this is the most versatile. The Scepter has the combined moveset of all Royal Arms, meaning that it fits in every situation. It also has one of the best warp strikes for a hit and run strategy, making it a decent cheesing weapon as well. Its dark resistance makes it extremely useful for the end game enemies, and overall, you just can't go wrong with this in your arsenal. The God tier. Though it's obtained in Chapter 12, the Trident of the Oracle is an absolute beast. Its basic moveset is only surpassed by the Katana, and the after images left by Noctis deal chip damage that adds up quickly. But the main reason this Trident is so devastating is its ability to stun lock enemies using the Aerial Dive Warp Strike. This makes almost every battle a cakewalk. The final weapon of the God tier, and top of this list, is the Katana of the Warrior. Obtained in Chapter 10, this insanely fast sword has an extended warp strike distance and some of the fastest combos in the game. Overall, the utility here is simple. It has the range of the projectile weapon with incredible warp strike speed, coupled with the damage of the axe or the Sword of the Tall. If it had the stun locking capabilities of the Trident, then it would have needed a tier all to itself. Overall, this is the best Royal Arms in Final Fantasy XV, both in damage and usage, as well as availability. And that's our list. How'd we do? Let me know in the comments which is your favorite weapon. Thank you to all my Patreon members, and if you would like to join the Pro tier and request your own list, click on the link in the description below. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Bonus round. Top 10 best dressed Noctises. Number 10, Choco Mog outfit. Number 9, Magitech armor. Number 8, Noctis figurine. Number 7, Hazmat costume. Number 6, Fancy outfit. Number 5, Festive ensemble. Number 4, Noctis's fatigues. Number 3, Royal raiment. Number 2, King's raiment. And number 1 is the greatest crossover in all of gaming history, the Cup of Noodle hat.